This is a quick demo of how to deploy an analytic workflow with Statistica Edge. Let's take a use case around predictive maintenance for airport body scanners. So airport body scanners are expensive machines with a lot of different parts that could potentially fail. So our goal here was to identify in real time which particular parts have a higher likelihood of failure and make sure that they are notified ahead of time so that they could have replacements ready to go. So that way we can ensure minimum backlog. So here we are looking at various factors like temperature sensors, ambient temperature, pressure, humidity, and the number of cycles per minute, and we're using advanced analytic methods behind the scenes to predict the risk of failure for a particular part, which is what you see at the bottom. And here you'll see that a spike here shows that there is a very high likelihood that a particular part is going to fail. So as you can see, there are a lot of advanced analytic methods behind the scenes. This is a typical workflow where we have multiple different models for predictive maintenance. And as we run these models, the most important thing is we can now take these models and deploy them as various different types of codes. So here you can see that we can now deploy these models as PMML, C, C++, C Sharp, SQL stored procedures, Teradata rules, or as Java. Once we have identified the type of code that we want, we can now push this model to a centralized repository, which is what we call Statistica Enterprise. You can either deploy or update an existing model, and here we can now specify the model, update it, and this now becomes as part of the centralized repository. Each model has a unique ID, and once we identify that ID and type of code that we want to bring it back as, we can now access these models via the enterprise API that we have now made available. So here I'm looking at a particular model and I want to bring the underlying deployment code in Java. So here we can bring it back as Java code, or we could even bring it back as C Sharp, or if needed, even as PMML. Once we've built the model and identified a particular language that we want to push it out as and made it as part of enterprise, we can now go to a model transportation layer. In this case, we are using Boomi, where it now connects to all these different data sources and also has a custom connector for Statistica, which basically uses the enterprise OData service to point to this specific enterprise metadata table space where I have saved those models as Java code, and I can now go through those list of models that we have already deployed and just point to any model that we want to use as part of the Boomi flow. This Boomi flow can now be pushed as a Java virtual machine to the edge or a gateway. And finally, you can now even write the results to a database.